Hello, my loves. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Dustina. This is Spiritually Boujee Astrology, and we are going to take a deep dive into October. October. I've been ready for October for so long. I've been ready for October for so long. I've just been like pushing through this entire summer. Like, I want to get to October. I know there's so much new stuff coming in October, and I know so many people are not even like realizing that there's going to be so much new to October. But me, knowing the backwards to the forwards, I've been ready for October. And now we're here. Now, I want to do a real quick thing as to why I was putting so much emphasis on the special that I was running in September. I want to be clear. That is the last full monthly special that I was going to run. I do other things on the website for like people that if you're going to book multiple sessions at the same time that you can do it at a discounted rate. But as a whole, I'm not running a special in October. And I want to be clear about something. My goal, unless intuitively I figure out something different, but my goal has been January 1st, I'm going to increase my prices. Now, to be clear, the reason I'm starting with this is I do not charge what other astrologers charge for the services that I do. In a lot of ways, I'm at minimum a half their price. For a lot more, I'm like a quarter of their price. So I want to say that with the idea that my chart always says if I focus on people, the money comes. It's just what it is. And I've always done it that way. I focus on my people. I focus on my clients. I focus on building my clients. I focus on building the channel. And I want to do it all organically. I don't pay for views or anything like that. I really focus on like being as real and authentic as I can be. I don't listen to a bunch of other astrologers because I never want to get confused as to like, oh, she's copying so and so. No, she ain't, because she ain't got time to watch anything else. I promise you. Doing this full time, sessions full time, events full time, and taking care of my mom full time. Girl ain't got time for much of anything else. So let's be very, very clear about that. Um, the whole idea has been I want to get the channel to grow, but I also want to grow my client base. But in the last 4 years of doing this, I've never raised my prices. And regretfully, with the timeline that we're in and how wonderful inflation has been, I am going to do a small increase. Now, there's nothing wrong with other astrologers that charge two, three, $500 for their sessions. I'm coming clean from the beginning. I have no plan to do that. My price increase will be very, very minimal. So full price for a 1 hour session is $50. My goal is to probably take it up to about 65. I'm not planning on a massive increase. And there's nothing in the energies that tells me that that's warranted. So I just want to be fair and be clear about that part. But I also want to tell people from the beginning that this is the plan, because then you have the next 3 months to either book at normal pricing, wait for the one and only extra special that I will run this year. And it will be a quick little 1-2 week flash sale kind of thing. And it will not be in October. I'll tell you that right now. Or anything along these lines. But my one-on-one sessions, my synastry sessions, and some of the other things that I do, they are all likely to have a price increase. And whenever we get closer to that time, I will be clear about what all of those are going to be. But again, it's not going to be an astronomical thing. I do try to stay as budget friendly as possible, but I also have to take my accounting into budget and what it costs to raise a parent. That's a joke, by the way. A lot of people know that. It's like, but raising parents are fun and they can be expensive. Okay. Okay. Raising myself is fun too. And I can be expensive sometime also. Okay. The bougie goes both ways. All right. We're going to focus in. Now, something I don't normally do, but I'm going to do in the intro of this one also is talk about the numerology. Because a lot of people have said, well, it's a 9 years, so we're supposed to let things go. We're supposed to end things. And that's true. And I've actually said that over and over again through the astrology, having nothing to do with the fact that it's a 9 year, but also just reading those planets and knowing that we have this teetering of both new and old simultaneously. Being in a 9 year is the end of a cycle for a lot of people. But October, the month itself, it's a 1 month. There's a lot of new things that are meant to come through, but the new blends in with the old. It's because of the old. It's necessary to fix the old. It's about the old. It's weaving in the old. We have this vibration of the old and the new coming together as we set the stage for how we move forward. Now, as a collective, it's a 9-year, but not all of us as an individual are going through a 9-year. So one little quick homework thing for anyone that gets curious about this, you can Google my numerology year. And there's little calculators out there. Free ones, by the way, don't pay for them. There's little calculators out there. And it will tell you, you as an individual, if you are also going through the 9-year, if you're going through a year of like cleanse, remove, take away, are you in a support year? Like a lot of us, like I tend to be in a support year right now of like helping people get through, helping people build, helping people transform, helping people understand. Everybody as an individual is going through a different vibration. And whenever it comes to the month of October, that vibration is meant to shift. Now I'm going to put the numerology away because it's really not my thing. I'm an astrologer first and foremost. We're going to focus on the planets. The first 2 weeks of the month, we've got some stuff going on. We've got some little bits of spiral vibration. That spiral vibration is because we have one planet that is going to turn direct in the first 2 weeks of the month, and that's Pluto. But we're also going to see the clarity, the blurring of the old coming back up as we're focusing on the new. And when it comes to timeline wise, there's a couple timelines in the most recent vibration that I'm going to tie together, but I'm not going to ignore the fact that some of you can go back even further. Some of you can go back to 2022 and 2021 for different reasons. Some of you can go all the way back to 2008 for different reasons. Some of you, and this is the fun one, can go all the way back to like 1996, 97, 98 for different reasons. And that's more of a Saturn thing. And we're not going to talk about him that way. So there's that. So sometimes our stuff goes even further back, but not everybody remembers what they were doing in 1996 and 1997. I was in middle school. I'm sure as shit not going to repeat that. So there's that part. Now, focusing on where we are at, I do want to put more emphasis on Mars this month. One half of the month is going to be Scorpio season. That's a Mars ruled sign. We're retracing steps where we had the last Mars rebirth, and that was back in 2023. So we have something from the past that's bleeding back forward. And about 2 weeks ago, I said something on the episode of like, if you were Aries rising or Scorpio rising, when Mars goes back into Scorpio, we're picking back up on those intentions that we set in that Mars rebirth back in November of 2023. I need to add to that because some of you Aquarius risings and Leo risings, y'all have shot back up going, whoa, 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 us too, hello, us too. So if you're an Aquarius rising and you specifically started to do something different in career, you had a new boss, a new CEO, you started a company, you started a business, you started working through something back in November of 2023, a lot of you are picking back up on the next level of it as we go through October. If you are a Leo rising, some of you had something going on with your mom, something going on with your home life, with your family. Some of you started building a house. Some of you had something going on with inheritance, a lot of you with inheritance. Right around that 2023 mark, some part of that does have to do with Saturn in Pisces because that's your 8th house. Others, it has had to do with what Mars revealed and brought to light going back to that 2023 time frame. So fixed signs, I haven't had as many Taurus risings come screaming, here, me too. But but I have had Leo risings and Aquarius risings showing up going, hey, that little message, I'm in it. I'm not an Aries rising, but I'm in it. Like, okay, got it. So I'm adding to that for the fixed signs because more of you have come out of the woodwork saying, hi. Okay. So we're picking back up on energies, intentions, directions, revealings, disruptions, because it's Mars, disruptions, whether it's pivotal or chaotic, is a different conversation, that tie back to most exact November of 2023. But we can say October, November, December just for the human effect, the end of 2023. That's one blast from the past energy that is feeding into the new. Another time frame is going to take us back to early this year, from January to April. And some of y'all might remember some of that timeline. We had a Mars retrograde, we had a Venus retrograde, we had a Mercury retrograde, and all that too. Not putting a whole lot of blame on Mercury yet. We're going to talk about him here in a second because he's playing into this month, but we're not to him yet. I'm putting more emphasis on the Mars and the Venus because a lot of that Mars retrograde, Venus was reacting to. Venus was pushing something forward. Venus was dealing with something based off of the outcome of the Mars retrograde. And it really comes down to the way the Mars retrograde ended and started. Now, why would I specifically say the Mars retrograde timeframe? Jupiter. Jupiter in the area of the sky is one in shadow. And all of this month, Jupiter is slowing down. But adding a layer to that, Jupiter is in an area of the sky where Mars was retrograde. And there can be things about what was going on specifically. For some people, some groundwork was laid last September, October, when Mars was direct here. But more of you have come back and said, no, the disruption of the retrograde, which that would have been January, February retrograde, March, April, direct. Mars was in this area of the sky. So a lot of you have gone back to, we're building off of, we're expanding upon, we're learning from, we're healing, hopefully, discovering things that go back to what was done in the Mars retrograde and dealing with the aftermath, dealing with the result, dealing with the outcome, expanding upon the outcome, the aftermath, the lesson. Some of us went through lessons, some of us went through transformation. Excuse my voice. Now, the Venus retrograde, it's not Venus's fault. I'm going to be fair about that. But I'm going to remind everybody during that Venus retrograde, and that was from March 1st all the way until April 12th. It went between Aries and Pisces. And we've had two other planets going between Aries and Pisces. Both of these planets, Venus made multiple conjunctions to in her retrograde. That would be Neptune and Saturn. In the month of September, specifically September 1st, Saturn went back into Pisces. Saturn's been bringing up some old stuff, triggering some old wounds, letting us know some stuff from the past, making us reflect on some of the decisions and the connections that we made all the way back then. About the 21st of this month, please put a pin next to that date, because you're going to hear me say the timeline around the 21st of October multiple times in this episode. Okay. Pin, star, whatever you're doing in your notes. On the 21st of October, Neptune will retrograde back into Pisces. And for a lot of us, it's going to finalize some lessons, some unfinished business. There's a lot of unfinished business going on from the past. And let us know if we've learned our lessons from the timeline of what Neptune and Pisces has represented. That's gone on for a while. That's gone on for nearly 15 years. It started back in the early 2010s. I don't have the exact date. I didn't look this up, so I apologize. I always block this one out. It's Neptune stuff. Of course, I block it out. That started roughly around 2012 to 2013, if I remember correctly. So I apologize for not looking that up. Somebody can look it up and put it in the comments if they want to, but I have blocked it out for some reason. It's Neptune stuff. Of course, I block it out. We all tend to block Neptune out. Just, oh yeah, and Neptune. And then we keep going. Neptune is going to go back into Pisces. But there's a slew of other things that's going to be happening right around the time that Neptune does that, that still screeches to we're going to be dealing with new and old simultaneously. Put a pin. We're coming back to this. We're going to go to the next subject. We need to tie them all together before this can make sense. And I'll probably tie it all together in the closing just to be fair. Next chapter, next topic of conversation. We're going to go back to Mars. Now, again, Mars is going over areas of the sky where he had a rebirth back in 2023. Right around the degrees of where Saturn and the Sun made their conjunction in November of 2023, something else is about to start cooking up this month. And that's going to be a conjunction between Mercury and Mars. We're going to have a lot of conversations about this for the next 6 months. Six? Why 6, Dusty? Oh, because the first one that happens in October will be the first one in a series of 5. 5, you say? 5? We never have 5. You're exactly right. We never have 5. Usually, if a planet goes retrograde and it makes a conjunction of some sort next to another planet, think back to the Venus retrograde, what we were talking about earlier. She had a direct hit, a retrograde hit, and a direct hit. But Mercury's movements are different. And I originally looked for the 3. I looked for the 3 continuous dates, one that's going to happen in October, one in November, and one in January. But then I'm always looking 6 months ahead. I'm always looking at the next set of dates. Like we were in eclipse season. I was done with eclipse season. I was in October. Gearing up for October. Everybody's this gear up folks. What am I doing? I'm focused on the next eclipse season. Like I'm January to March already. But I was looking at the next eclipse season though. I found a Mercury-Mars conjunction. It's like, what the hell is that? The 3 are over, but that's a retrograde one. The one in March will be retrograde. I'm going to give you all the dates here in just a second. If there's a retrograde one, that means there's another direct one. So I kept digging and I looked and I found it and I was like, oh, we have 5 of these. 5. Ooh. I'm going to give you the dates. I'm going to give everybody the dates. So if you're going to write your stuff out and put it in your calendar, like this date ties to this, however you want to do that, I'm going to give you the dates up front. A lot of people have already gotten these dates in your one-on-one sessions, but this is the first time I've talked about this on the podcast. So the first Mercury-Mars conjunction this month, and it's a very pivotal one. We're going to hone in on it here in just a second. October 19th and 20th, depending on your time zone. For me, it's like right after midnight going into the 20th. But for a lot of you, it's going to be on October 19th. So October 19th, 20th, first Mercury-Mars conjunction, the most exact. We will have a build-up for about 5 days that bleed into it. We will have a down scoping, so to speak, of 5 or so days afterwards, but they're still going to be very heightened. The most exact, the 19th and the 20th. Keeping this going. The second one will happen in Sagittarius. Mercury will be retrograde in its detriment because Mercury in Sagittarius is not a great place. That's going to be Mercury conjunct Mars, November 12th, the most exact on the 12th. Fast forward, first of next year, we're going to have a bunch of things happening in January. We're not ready to talk about those yet. I've talked about some of this with some of you in your one-on-ones, but we're sticking to this part. January 17th and 18th. So it's happening real late again. So it's going to depend on your time zone. Third, Mercury-Mars conjunction, and this will be in Capricorn. The fourth one, we're going to skip Aquarius. It's going to happen in Pisces, March 14th and 15th. Again, that's Mercury retrograde in its detriment because it's in Pisces. And it's eclipse season. And that's going to be around the time of the last Virgo eclipse. So yay. That one looks tough. It looks, November and March have some messiness to it. I'll just be fair about that. And then our fifth and final one will be March 19th and 20th. And that's going to be a Mercury-Mars conjunction in Aries in a conjunction to Saturn. Now, I want to be clear about something. The first date happens this month, and it starts in a Mars-ruled sign. A Mercury-Mars conjunction starts in a Mars-ruled sign. Let's be fair about that. The second one, Mercury's not in a great place. Mercury will be in its detriment and retrograde. It's going to get messy. The third one, it's a Mercury-Mars conjunction in Capricorn in Saturn's sign immediately before Saturn goes back into Aries. I'm going to round all this out here in a second. Fourth one's messy. Retrograde, Pisces, eclipse season, messy. A lot of changes going on. Fifth one, it's in a Mars ruled sign again. We start the conjunctions in a Mars ruled sign. We end them in a Mars ruled sign. It's going to be Mars, Mercury, in Aries, and again in a conjunction to Saturn. And this is what I'm thinking. And all of this is starting in October, in this new beginnings pivotal month that it is. There's going to be a specific situation, conversation, filing, decision, thing in October that directly impacts something really launching in January. Big time launching, starting up, getting revealed, getting debuted. There's reasons I'm saying those specific words, by the way. We'll talk about them more later. January. Whatever we start to launch, I'll say that just going with that word, in January, launch, reveal, comes to light, comes into focus, directly impacts that April date. So to sum all of that up, very specific decisions, communication, filing, situations of any sort that start to unfold, the most exact, around October 20th. We have another date right around the 21st that I've already said. So right around October 20th, I'm just going to say October 20th for the entirety, by the way, are going to literally impact us for the next 6 months. And a lot of whatever is starting to unfold around the 20th, it's not just the new stuff that we've been building all year. It also goes back to old things too. Now, some of what we were dealing with in September was recognizing in that transition if the new that we've been building for so long was in the right place, was with the right people. Some of us, we had to scramble and connect with certain people before that they were only there to help us get through the moment. They weren't forever people. They weren't people that were really in tune with what we were doing. October is a big month. I hope you are more settled on your players because, again, October is a very big month. We've got a pin in Neptune. Now we're going to pin in Mercury, Mars. Pin. Now, the thing about Mercury, Mars, I will put this part together, is it's not the only transit that's in a buildup during that time. And then there's another one. And it's kind of crazy to me because we don't usually put a whole lot of emphasis into it, but it's so heavy for so long that I feel like there's something that starts to really impact our faith, impact our hope, impact our prosperity, our abundance, our desires. And that's a really interesting one that also takes place right around the same time, a square between Chiron and Jupiter. The one element of Chiron and Jupiter will be that there will be a T-square that will also include the sun. It won't be an exact, there will be kind of a timeline between each one. But I'm putting a special emphasis on that Chiron-Jupiter square because that same time frame, October 20th, that's when Mercury goes into shadow for its retrograde. The pivotal decisions of what we're trying to do, the announcements of what we are trying to do, they will have a shockwave. For some people, that shockwave will go well, and it will allow for solutions to come through that, again, build up wealth or build up prosperity or put something forward. But for other people, it is going to stagnate it. People will start to feel very stagnant in their hope, in their beliefs, in what they're doing. And whenever we get into the very last part of the month, Mercury will enter Sagittarius, already in shadow, right as that Jupiter Chiron square is coming through. And there's something about that that was very integral to me because it feels like we're trying to create solutions, but Chiron is in a Mars ruled sign. Mars goes through a conjunction with Mercury. It doesn't feel like the solutions are going to go over well. For a lot of people, it feels like a solution might not go over well. And whatever we initially agreed to be doing in October By the time we get to the end of November, we're revising them. We're revising something. Because again, that very heavy, intricate timeline of October, most exact around the 20th. I'm just saying the 20th now, as we go through all of it, there's something very specific about that timeline that feels like it's a very big turning point. And if I look at the importance of Mars over the next few months, retracing his steps from his last rebirth, preparing for the next rebirth, which will happen in January, and Mercury being the more active ruler of one half of the eclipse axis, he's been doing more damage than Jupiter has been. Jupiter hasn't been able to get a lot of things in order compared to what Mercury has been able to really shift and change for us. The transitions that happened between August and late July, I'm thinking Mercury retrograde, late July, August, and September were so profound, and that was very mercurial in a lot of the ways. And over the next 6 months, we're going to have these eclipse ruler planet, Mercury, Martian Mars, god of war, active, drive, desire, determination planet, making continuous conjunctions to Mercury. Whatever new we are putting forth this month has a very profound effect to the full big picture of what we will be completely submerged into come 2026. The thing I've said for a very long time is 2025 and 2026, we're becoming accustomed to a new normal, but 2025 was only going to show you so much. It was pinky toe dips into the water. The new stuff we started to do over the summer, the new people we started to hang out with over the summer, the new places, the new situations, only so much of that was meant to stick. Now, as we go through the last part of this year, we have this blend of trying to still do some of the new, making very pivotal decisions, especially this month, of the new, while still having the old come back around, the old come back up to the surface. And we need to become aware of what that old is, because whenever it comes to November, some of those things we're going to be putting to bed. There's going to be revisions. But for us to know what those revisions are in November, we have to get through October. The decisions, the arrivals, the information, the secret desires coming to the surface, the focus, the long-term determination, that long-term activation that has been going through this vibration for quite some time. There's a hyperized focus to the time and the energy around the 20th, because for some people, it's going to be a series of a multitude of things all at once that create frustration. And whenever you have too much hitting you at once, a lot of the times it comes into frustration. But for other people, the announcements are going to have shockwaves. For the collective, like, we're going to do this new thing, and that is going to come with shock. Some people will not know how to handle the quote, quote, solutions. This feels like it's more for the collective now. And I feel like there's going to be reactions that will follow in November, as much as, clearing up the mess in other ways. When we get closer to November, that's going to make a lot more sense. But for us to get to that point, we got some big decisions that are going to be happening in October. And again, whatever happens in October directly impacts November and January, Mercury, Mars. Those setups will directly impact whatever we are dealing with and focused on and submerged into with our new normal come the second half of those dates, and that's the March and April timeframe. There is something very specific to October that is setting the stage for at minimum the next 6 months. So let's look at the dates. Let's look at the dates. Oh, it's gonna be so fun. Let's look at all this. Let's look at the chart. Okay. Okay. Okay, I'm not messing with all that. Let's hope everything is going to go well. Let's look at this. All right, October 1st, our very first date. This is going to happen the most exact around 4 p.m. This is whenever Jupiter hits the square to Mercury. So I'll be honest, I kind of feel like for some of you guys, I'm the Jupiter Mercury square. Like you're going to hear this first thing and be like, what the hell is this, Dusty? And I'm going to get so many DMs of a spiral like, what is happening in October? I fully anticipate this. The other thing that's also going on October 1st is we are in a government shutdown. Some kind of news that is impacting the masses. That's hilarious here in America. I know I got some Canadians up there. You guys, you're not dealing with the same situations that we are, but still, there is something about the Jupiter Mercury square that for the collective, I felt like it was going to impact the masses and trigger a lot of alarm bells and insecurities and frustrations. And I still stand by that. In other ways, though, in our individual sense, there's going to be some kind of decision, some news, some information, some kind of meeting where the meeting itself doesn't have to go bad, but it's like once we hear the decision or we're past the outcome of the meeting, that it kind of creates that indifference that's going to lead to a reaction, but we're not immediately in the reaction mode, but we're going to end up focusing on it. And for some people, it's also going to include a lot of digging. It's just this isn't the date for digging. But the news, the situation, the conversations, a lot of this right here can have a big energy that plays into that quote upset that I was talking about in the Bad News Bears weekly episode. Okay, moving along. We're not going to stay too focused on this because I did cover it in the weekly episode. We're going to go and bump this now to the 6th, and we're going to talk about that reaction thing. Now, this is going to go exact. We've got two things happening on the 6th. One in the morning time, and this is at about 11:41 a.m. That's the exactness. Mercury is going to go into Mars's sign. This is an arrival. But there's something else happening in a Mars-ruled sign this day, and that is the full moon in Scorpio. So I'm not moving this by hour. I don't feel like we need to on this particular one. Mercury coming into Scorpio for some people, this is going to be the arrival of a letter, the arrival of a person, the phone call from a person, some kind of communication that is either allowing you to know that something is completed or it requires a reaction. Because I'm looking at this full moon in Aries. If it doesn't require, it triggers a reaction. For some people, you don't even, it's not that it's required, it's just whenever the news comes, you're ticked, we're angry, we're frustrated, we're not prepared, we're having to take immediate action that was not planned, and that can be like the quote triggered of a reaction given that full moon's energy. Now there's quite a few hours difference. There's nearly a 12-hour difference between the two. Again, Mercury is going to enter Scorpio at 11:41 a.m. and the full moon in Aries is going to perfect later in the evening at 10:48 p.m. Central Standard Time. But it tells me still that there's something about the new of Mercury coming into Scorpio that kind of triggers, coincides with, is connected to the action, the reaction, the vibrant energy that is that full moon in Aries. Now, the next morning, I'm just going to bump this a day, roughly around 9:45 in the morning is when it's going to be the most exact, but we're going to feel it all day. Mercury is going to make a square with Pluto. This can be tense, this can be argumentative, this can be frustrating, this can be triggering, but this will be the last major planetary square to Pluto before Pluto ends its retrograde. So this news can also be something that over the course of the next week, because we're literally a week away from Pluto turning direct, by the way, over the course of the next week, we have the ability to turn something around. A power struggle, a power dynamic, something where we have had a shift in frustration. And that Mercury Pluto energy right here feels like we can have some bad news, or we can have some frustrating news, or we can deliver something, or we can learn something that again is going to trigger some level of a turnaround. The decisions, the conversations. Now, I will be fair, like some of the people, whenever we're having some of these conversations, Mercury now in Pluto sign, in Scorpio, there can also be some things that find their way to the surface, find their way coming up, that it makes us finally deal with an old past wound, trauma, trigger, frustration. It makes us shift something. And it can also be the news that kind of triggers a relief that goes into transformation. Transformation is more of the positive side of Pluto. We can transform something and completely repurpose it into something stronger, beautiful, and more capable. That's the positive side of Pluto. The negative side of Pluto is it's going to be triggering bad news, frustrating things that we don't necessarily want to deal with. So be aware of that. Be aware, be aware. But I'm not entirely like hating on this, because there's another transit that's building through the 7th that goes exact the morning of the 8th. I'm not going to bump this by hour again. I'm just going to bump it by day. So we're still stuck at this 3:30. But what will happen is going to happen in the morning time. The most exact around 6:30, 7 a.m., 6:45-ish is like the most exact. And that's going to be a sextile here between Jupiter and Venus. Now, Venus is still at this tail end of a bunch of other things tied to Mercury, Mars, and the sun. So Venus is still giving us some solutions. Venus is still giving us some outcome. Venus is still giving us some output that directly goes back to some of the stuff that happened in eclipse season, giving us some results. Venus is not the best placed in Virgo, but not the worst either. We're no longer in mutual reception, Mercury now being in Scorpio. So Venus is kind of on her own. But there is something about support from the doctor, the guru, the teacher, whenever it comes to that sextile from Jupiter. And just being able to have some additional level of support right after that Mercury Pluto tells me that we can find some level of solution, because I am still looking at the fact that Venus is in Mercury sign. So we can have some kind of news that triggers transformation, but we can also quickly have some kind of support solution based off of this Venus Jupiter sextile that immediately follows it the next day. Okay. Now, as we bump this to the 11th, this is going to be whenever Venus goes through her opposition to Saturn. Now, this is actually going to be more exact in the early morning hours, roughly around that 6:30 a.m. So 6:30, I got it here. Here's Venus, 27 degrees, 0 minutes. Here is Saturn, 26:59. So we're just a few milliseconds past of the actual exactness. This is going to a authority figure. This is talking to a boss, being reflective of some level of change. This can also speak back to these few days around the 11th, can speak back to whatever kind of came to light during the Virgo eclipse. So right there around that September 21st timeframe, this can bring some additional things to light from it, some results, some solutions, whatever unfolds around the 11th, just to be clear. There can be some kind of outcome, a positive conversation between two people, especially one with an elder. Venus has got more joy. She's bringing more practicalness with her status in Virgo right now, of what order we can put something through, how we can plan something out, how we can work through something. Or she's giving the results of previous planning, previous conversations in that opposition to Saturn. And Saturn, now that it's deeper in Pisces, we have a better idea of like whatever our unfinished business of Saturn and Pisces actually is, whether it has to do with boundaries, whether it has to do with old wounds, whether it has to do with responsibilities, whether it has to do with like having just kind of a different level of emotional backbone. Like we're dealing with some unfinished business of Saturn here, but Venus gives praise. Venus gives good feedback. Venus gives results. Venus is giving solutions in the Venus-Saturn opposition. Most exact on the 11th, but we can feel it on the 10th, the 11th, or the 12th, just to be clear. Okay, moving along. As we get to the 13th, we're going to have a lot of things that happen between the 13th and the 14th. At 4:19 p.m. Central Standard Time, Venus is going to go into Libra. And as soon as she goes into Libra, she starts her opposition to Neptune. So I'm going to keep it right here at 4:30 because that kind of encompasses both of them. Now, here's Venus in that opposition to Neptune. Now, some of us can have some kind of new thing come through that we are not anticipating, that we are confused by, that we are not planning for, that we were not aware of. And it'd be kind of blindsiding. But what I love about this vibration is right after Venus comes into Libra, and Venus rules Libra, so this is Venus in her home sign, this is exactly where Venus is supposed to be. Whoever shows up, that's exactly where they're supposed to be. Whatever we're going through, even if we're confused by it, it's exactly what we're supposed to be dealing with. Now, there's more things going on besides just Venus hitting this opposition to Neptune. What I also like is over the course of the evening, the moon will hit this conjunction to Jupiter. That's the doctor, the guru, the teacher. There's some kind of elements with support. There can be something about the effects. I'm still going with the Venus Neptune here too while I'm talking about the Jupiter stuff. The symptoms. Some of us are dealing with symptoms. The treatment. For some people, it is going to be something tangible about lies, fraud, deception. It's a possibility. Neptune's always got some possibilities there. I'm not quick to go with that. But I do feel like we get some other kind of news that allows for some level of relief, because this is also, excuse me, the night that Pluto turns direct. Now, Pluto will end its retrograde at 9:53 p.m. on the 13th. And I feel like the arrival of Venus going into Libra, one, it is unplanned. And with that opposition to Neptune, it's very, very clear that it's unplanned, unprovoked. There's confusion around it. Something that can arrive, comes through, is exactly where it's meant to be because it's Venus going into her home sign. And it offers solutions to things that we did not anticipate. And it allows for something to finally feel like it can turn around. There's some level of relief in it because it coincides with Pluto turning direct and on the next day. So we're still in the same kind of 24-hour time span of what's been going on. After Venus goes through that opposition to Neptune, Pluto turns direct. We're going to get into the 14th. And what will Venus do? She'll go through a trine with Uranus in the overnight hours. So on the 14th, roughly around, I said overnight hours, it's morning, 9 a.m. The Uranus-Venus trine will go exact on the 14th around 9 a.m. And then by the evening time, which I'm closer to here at 7:30, Venus will go through its first trine with Pluto. I say the first. Well, it is the first trine with Pluto. Hear me out. It's trine with Pluto, but this is the first Pluto retrograde that ends in Aquarius. The last 2 years, we've had the pinky toe dip of Pluto coming into Aquarius, but then retrograding back into Capricorn. Went into Aquarius and then retrograded back into Capricorn. But last November, when Pluto completely entered Aquarius, that's what happened, he moved full steam, full submerge into this is my new normal. This is the first time Pluto will end its retrograde in Aquarius. So that's what I mean by this first. And then Venus coming through and hitting a trine to that Pluto of like, I'm supporting how you overcome your trauma, how we overcome certain fears, how we end a power struggle, how we put something to bed, how we move something forward, how we turn something around, how we're going to take steps from here. And that power struggle dynamic of Pluto has a different mental energy once Pluto goes back to direct. Now, this area of the sky for Pluto, he's been here multiple times. He was at 1 degree back in late 2022, again in mid 2020, again in 2023. Oh, I said that backwards. He was here in 2023, 24, multiple times. This is about the fourth time that Pluto has been at 1 degree of Aquarius. And this is where he's turned direct. So he's been meandering in this one area for a while. And now we have some type of turnaround, some type of solution, some type of dynamic, but it's Pluto and Aquarius, not putting a house to this, just going based off of the sign. This is Pluto turning around in a sign that represents people, the masses. Okay. Put a pin in that. Just remember that part. Okay, we're going to keep it going. There is some kind of solution arrival with Venus here. Now, as we continue forward after the 14th, I want you to pay attention to Mercury and Mars. We've already talked about this in the intro. These two are within their 3-degree range starting on the 15th. We're pretty close to it here. It's 12 degrees, 5 minutes, 15:30. But there's something that starts to build up right around the 14th, 15th. It's starting to build up. It doesn't go exact until the 20th, but we are in this buildup. So that means after Pluto goes direct and we get into the 15th and forward, some conversations, either we're really trying to get something accomplished and get something done, we're in heavy negotiations, or we're a little bit more short-tempered. Mercury's conjunction to Pluto. Some of us, we don't know why we're feeling short-tempered, and we don't know what news is going to come. And I want people to be aware, if we get into parts of October and you are just feeling short-tempered and you can't keep this together, I'm not surprised. Got to do some stuff to make sure we can control that the things that are about to come out of our mouth, because the layers of them can be very, very heavy. Okay, so we're going to keep this going. As we get to the 17th, this is where we're going to have Jupiter hit that square to the sun, while the sun is also going through that opposition to Chiron. So I talked about this in the beginning of the intro also. Jupiter and Chiron are building to a square right now. This also started around the 15th. It's not going to go exact until the 23rd, but it's also in the buildup of the other energy. And whenever the sun comes in, it's like the sun gets this square from Jupiter, which Jupiter starts to really slow down after this. He will not get past 25 degrees. In November at 25 degrees, that is where Jupiter will turn retrograde. So some of the news of what comes to light also is supposed to be healing something, Chiron, fixing something, Chiron. It's supposed to be the solution to something, Chiron. And Chiron will remain in this square to Jupiter all throughout the rest of this month. It is the most exact on the 23rd. We're not near the 23rd yet, but there is something that comes to light, comes into focus, comes into the conversation that can either test our luck, give extra emphasis that a solution is necessary. It can bring light to a quote solution. But I feel like the solution is something that stalls and starts to stagnate a lot of people. And that's more collective stuff than individuals. As we get closer as individuals, I really think that we'll see this a lot closer as to like where it's stagnating us. But there is something that feels like it's going to kind of start to stagnate something. But we won't initially feel that stagnation. Jupiter is in the higher authority whenever it comes to the square. The sun is said to be in its fall in Libra, so confidence isn't at its best. And we can have some kind of idea of like, this is the solution I want to put forward. This is what I want to do. This is how I feel like something is going to go. This is the best course of action that I can take. This is the best course of treatment that we can perform. But the course of treatment is going to have layers and levels based off of the other transits that are going on. So it's not just poor Jupiter in this element right here. So we're going to keep this going. The Jupiter Sun square happens right after midnight on the 17th. It's at 12:30 a.m. By the evening time, you can see that's whenever we have the Sun Chiron opposition. I'm going to go ahead and bump this now to the 20th for the next major time frame. And again, it's late on the 19th for some people, early on the 20th. And this is whenever we have that Mercury-Mars conjunction. This is the first Mercury-Mars conjunction of 5 for the next 6 months. So whatever the solution is, that Sun, Jupiter, Chiron thing, whatever the activities are coming through, really triggers some things in our mental energy. And there's so much more going on the 20th that I'm going to actually start to go into next. That's actually a part of the transits beyond what we've already talked about. And it's going to really, it feels almost like frequency change. When I was meditating on this last night, specifically this 20th, it felt like old static, like static from the TVs when they were still like airwaves and stuff of, but the blending of color. So not just gray static, but it's like the lines, not the speckles, but lines of like colors and gray and white. It's weird. The static, whenever I was meditating on this, like it jumbles the senses of whatever is coming through around the 20th. And it's not just the Mercury Mars conjunction. So let's talk about the rest of the layers. Oh, let's talk about it. Oh, the 20th is so fun. Okay. So the 20th, the 21st, and the 22nd, these are all so fun. They're all blending into one another. And I'm still beating up on Mercury Mars, but we're not just stuck on Mercury Mars. The other thing we've got going on, and it's the most exact on the 21st, is going to be that new moon in Libra. So we're getting close to that right here. Right, there we go. We're just past it. Oh, new moon in Libra right here. I didn't actually write down the time. So it looks like it's going close to around 7:25. Sorry, I usually write down the times next to it, and I did not. Of course, Mercury is entering shadow during this Mercury-Mars conjunction, during this new moon in Libra. As we get to the 22nd, so I'm just going to bump this by a day, Neptune is going to re-enter Pisces. Neptune retrogrades back. So I feel like there is some very internalized beliefs, ideas of something, especially things that we were starting back in March, specifically during the Aries eclipse, by the way. Because that final Aries eclipse also coincided with the arrival of Neptune into Aries. Like it was an eclipse and then boom, Neptune. We have a new moon and then boom, Neptune. It's a Neptune. It's a new moon opposite of that Neptune. And it's really, because it's really interesting that we go through this new moon, we go through this conjunction, we go through this conversation, and then I'm blaming the frequency static thing on the Neptune retrograding back into Pisces. Because I feel like whatever comes through, like it really shutters us back to an old belief system, some old emotions, some old things that we cannot even fathom until whatever news kind of triggers that old vibration. And we're still trying to do new stuff. But I feel like we're going to become very aware of what old stuff needs to still be closed out once Neptune goes back in. And we're not done. We're not done with these few days. It's such a fun few days. It's so fun. Okay. Neptune's going to re-enter Pisces simultaneously the same day. So now we're doing stuff by hour. The same day, good old Sun goes into Scorpio. There we go. We're still on the 22nd. We're just like real late on the 22nd. The Sun goes into Scorpio. So we have two planets on the 22nd changing signs, one retrograding backwards, the Sun moving into Scorpio. Now the Sun is better placed in Scorpio compared to Libra. But I also feel like because some old thing comes up, we got a different kind of reaction, a different kind of focus, a different nature coming through. And remember, Mercury is now in shadow. So whatever this first layer of vibration is coming through here, and a lot of us are not going to know what it is. It's a part of the messiness that we're going to be dealing with all through November. But we're just becoming aware of some of the messiness. Some of those people are just coming back around, or that old topic is just coming back around. And we're not even in a retrograde. We're not even in a Mercury retrograde yet. So yay, yay, yay. Okay, moving along. On the 23rd, I'm just going to bump it by hour because that literally does take us to the 23rd. This is where we're going to have our actual square between Chiron and Jupiter. Now, this is going to go more exact a couple hours later. I'm just going to get here so you can kind of see what this is. And this is the first square between Chiron and Jupiter. So please add a note to that too. We will have a second one that will occur on December 21st. The second Jupiter Chiron square will occur then. Now, what's different about each one is this one, Chiron is retrograde, has been retrograde for a while, and Jupiter is direct, but Jupiter is stagnating. Jupiter is slowing down. Jupiter is about to go retrograde. Retrograde is going to start in November, but all month long, Jupiter is starting to slow down. The second one, Chiron will be retrograde and Jupiter will be retrograde, that one in December. So let's play fair to that one. The one after that, though, the one that's way further in the distance, July 1st of next year, will be Chiron and Jupiter at 0 degrees of Taurus and Leo. They won't even be in these same signs. So there's a need to deal with this instigative vibration of some of the unfinished business. And remember, Jupiter's in an area of the sky where Mars was retrograde earlier this year. Chiron has been in Mars's sign for freaking ever now. That's not a joke. It's been over a decade. So we have something about, like, again, the solutions that we are trying to announce and the activities that we are trying to do that some people either don't know what they're going to do with, they don't know how to respond to. Some will be supportive, but it's like the support can't stick in some way, or there's going to be stuff that expands what we did earlier in the year, or really teaches us lessons from stuff that we did earlier in the year that sometimes we're not going to know what to do with those lessons. But we're still trying to do new stuff while those old lessons and that old vibration finds its way back around. And remember, folks, Neptune is back in Pisces and Mercury's in shadow. It's getting really weird. Okay. Right around here. Okay. We're going to keep it going. This is the most exact. A couple hours after this, I didn't write down the time to this. I guess I was getting tired. I'll be honest. I was writing this around midnight. So I'm not surprised that I missed a few of these time spans. With going into the 24th, so I'm going to bump this by day. We get a couple things going on simultaneously. One becomes a big awareness of what we need to overcome, what we need to transform, what we need to let go of. And that happens roughly around 8 a.m. I got this now at 8:30. And this is where the sun goes through its square with Pluto. It's actually exact right here. 1 degree, 23 minutes. Here's Pluto, 1 degree, 23 minutes. So between that 8 and 8:30 time span, so the first thing in the morning, we become aware of something that we need to transform, of something that we need to let go of something that we need to overcome, something that we need to put straight and put into order. This will be the first major transit to a newly direct Pluto when the sun hits its square. But simultaneously, we have another transit happening the same day, and that is going to be Jupiter's first trine with Mercury. Please note that I said that because there will be 3 of these, 3 trines between Jupiter and Mercury. This direct one, there will be another one that will be retrograde, and there will be a final direct one. And those dates are November 19th, 3rd, and I'm sorry, wrong set of dates. November 22nd and December 6th. The Sun-Pluto square is the most exact right here at this 8:30 standpoint. The Jupiter-Mercury trine is going to be roughly around 10 a.m. So it's going to be a very interesting morning about news, conversation, topics moving forward. There can be things in regards to our gut health. I want to be clear about that, and I'll put some more emphasis on that in the closing. For some people, there will be health things that are going on, but if we're having something around gut health, it's like we're getting the first wave of something, but it's not something that's fully embarked upon quite yet. Okay, we're going to keep it going. We're going to keep it going. The 25th, just bump it by a day. Roughly around 4:30 in the afternoon, so I'm not going to move it. I'm just going to leave it where it is. Mercury is going to go through its first trine with Saturn. Now, please note that I said first. There will be 3 of these also. The second one will be during the Mercury retrograde. That'll be on November 22nd. The third and final one will be December 7th. So again, we're setting some new information, putting new things in order, getting new things are focused on, new things coming through, but it's still dealing with some of the old stuff. And it's like the arrival of something from the past feeding into this new conversation and new decision that is going to make us do revisions. We just don't even know what the revisions are quite yet. We might be getting a little bit closer to understanding the revisions, but I don't know that we know all of them. Okay, we're going to keep it going. That's the 25th. We're going to bump this now just a couple days to the 28th. And Jupiter is going to go through its trine with Mars. So Jupiter 2449. I've got Mars here at 25.1. We're just past it. Looks like it was more exact in those overnight hours. Mars is a little bit slower, so we're going to be building up to this for a couple of days. Again, it's the most exact on the 28th. We have all of this Mercury stuff that's kind of taking more of the helm, but it feels like our desires to heal something, to put something forward, an action that we are pushing forward, Mars, can have support from Jupiter, but it's like a hesitant support. And what I want to bring up with this trine with Jupiter right here is now Jupiter's getting really close to 25. It's not quite at 25, not going to hit 25 in October. It will in November. But I want to point out that Saturn is now at 25. And Saturn will turn direct at 25 degrees. This is a really close vibration that speaks to a grand trine between Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces, between Jupiter, Saturn, and Mars. And there can be a very heavy vibration of actions that we are trying to do that require old authority figures, old responsibilities, an old task that was completed that feeds into the new, an old person that feeds into the new, another person that says, I can't support, you're going to have to go somewhere else. And that's what the Jupiter aspect feels like, because I'm looking at Jupiter is hosting that Saturn. Jupiter is slowing down. So a lot of times when a planet is starting to slow down, there's a hesitation. And I feel like Jupiter by now is going to be aware of a hesitation. And I feel like we're going to have some transition of where we get support, where we get approvals, where we're doing certain things, how we're charging ahead moving forward, because there's going to be some people that they can't continue to help. And that would be the Jupiter slowing down part. And it forces us to either go back to someone, Mars trine Saturn, or recount a different timeline. And it might not be that person that you worked with before, but it's like somebody next to them. So instead of calling your dad, you call your uncle. Somebody next to them has similar knowledge, has a similar background, might even have similar amounts of money, depending on what the topic is. But it's like we're looking for support from somebody that is similar but not the same, that can have a different mindset and doesn't treat you like a child. Because the thing about our parents is they always look at us like, you're the baby, you're my baby. And there's a reason certain kids have to separate from their parents, because once they're adult, I'm not a freaking baby anymore. But your uncle, your aunt, they'll treat you like a baby. They don't have the same investment in that regard. And they look at your growth very differently compared to a parent. Hi, auntie to a lot. Okay. My investment is different. Moving along. So here is Jupiter's trine to Mars. We're getting really close to Mars's trine to Jupiter. That's actually going to go exact on the 29th. But we have other things going exact on the 29th. So I'm going to go ahead and bump this through. Nope, I got to do it by hour to make this work. So let's go into that overnight hours into the 29th. Bumping this here. There we go. Mercury is going to go through a trine with Neptune. And this is the first one. Again, first one. The second one is going to be November 19th. Third and final will be December 11th. So again, we're coming into some new things that we're going to be dealing with layers of bullshit too. Now, I don't like this for anyone that could be potentially drinking and driving. I know we're getting really close to the Halloween mark here. I don't think a lot of people do drinking and driving on a Wednesday, but there can be some things that we don't see clearly. There could be some things that lead to some confusion, that have some frustrations going on. Mars is still building to its trine with Saturn, but we haven't quite snagged into it quite yet. It's still going to happen on this same day, but I'm going to keep this going because I feel like there is a intensity in the buildup with Mars as to like how we're progressing forward with something. But I'm going to keep bumping this by hour on the 29th because it gets real mercurially busy. That's the best way I can say it. At 6:03 a.m., I got it at 6:30. Mercury is going to go into Sagittarius and immediately start this opposition to Uranus. There could be some kind of news that is very, very unexpected, some kind of arrival that is very, very unexpected. And for some people, it's going to trigger an insecurity because if you take a look at the moon is getting real close to Pluto right here. Now we're past it, but that doesn't mean that the insecurity is not real. There's something that can speak to an unplanned vibration, a frustrating vibration, unexpected communication. But what's interesting is Uranus is in Gemini, and that's Mercury's sign. So some people are aware of what's going on. It's just a matter of how they've fed into the arrival, have they fed into some situation. But this is the final little bit of Uranus and Gemini. Uranus will actually change signs in November. So some of these first little oppositions can also be something that triggers another wave of unfinished business that is again a part of November. We still have a lot of the unfinished business while we're trying to do the new. Okay. Mercury hits that opposition to Uranus. It's still loosely in that trine to Neptune. So we've got some confusion on top of the arrival of the unexpected and the unplanned. And there can be something very technological right here. Very technological, just to be aware. And then as we get into the afternoon, that is whenever we get to the full Mercury-Uranus opposition. And simultaneously, this is going to be roughly around 2 p.m. So I got it at 1:30 because that's close enough. When Mercury hits that full opposition to Uranus, that's when Mars is going to hit its full trine to Saturn. That is going to happen at exactly 2 p.m. for both of them. So this timeline of the 28th, 29th, and we're going to go into the 30th, feel very tedious. A lot of decisions being made, a lot of news coming through, a lot of things not necessarily being planned, and can leave some people in a lurch because like you're starting to lean and ask for help from other people that you haven't asked for help from before or you've never worked with before based off of how this stuff is going to come through. And you might regret some of these initial meetings and giving too much trust. Mercury now in Sagittarius might have a little bit of overconfidence or be a lot more loud and boisterous compared to normal. Okay. And now we're going to get to the next day, October 30th. I'm just going to bump this by day. And we're going to get Mercury's sextile to Pluto. This isn't nearly as heavy, but it can be conversations about what's going on behind the scenes, below the surface, old wounds, old triggers, just having some normal conversations about recent insecurities. Even if those insecurities aren't necessarily playing into this exact moment, it can kind of be a catch-up thing, but there can also be some kind of news or announcements that, again, might not stick because this is the first sextile between Mercury and Pluto. The next two will be November 17th and December 13th. Now, I am setting the stage as clearly as I possibly can. That there is new to October. We need the new, but the new is feeding off of the old. It's got old things bleeding into it and weaving into it. And we're going to have ideas as to like how those things are going to progress as they keep coming through. And there's going to be some information in here, some situations in here that are going to have very mundane effects. You know, we're going to have mechanical issues. We're going to have electrical issues. We're going to have technological issues. We're going to have communication issues. And that Mercury stuff, especially those last few days of the month, that speaks to all of that. But then I also feel like there's going to be some people that they don't want to accept that they're a part of the issue. Like they're the one that miscommunicated. They're the ones that were not being clear. They were the ones that created some drama and they're the ones that created some tension. There's going to be misunderstandings. Now, a lot of people are going to be really motivated to push something forward. And as we get into November, we're going to realize that when we're pushing forward, it's going to have an interruption. It's going to say, not the time. It's going to have some kind of test in the energy, but we don't even know what the new is. Some of us do. Some of us do. Like I said, the ones of you that you could tie back to that 2023, those Aquarius Leo risings, y'all were like me and you were like, nope, nope. I know what it is. I know what it is. I know what it is. Backwards and forwards. I got it. And we could tie it all together. And that's been fun. But then there's been other people that are like, I don't remember 2023. It's, oh gosh. So I'm going to say to you what I say to everybody. Go back through your calendars, your appointments. Go back through your pictures. Go back through your social media posts. I'm one that I'll even take screenshots of different things during that time that I feel like that conversation is going to be key. And then I come back to it later. Go back through your emails. What were you going through during that time? What were you dealing with at work? Because it's feeding into the now. It's feeding into a lot of the vibration of now. For some of the people, you have no clue what's coming through because you didn't make those decisions before. You were just in the result of the decisions. Like you didn't choose the new boss. The new boss just showed up one day. And now that new boss is trying to unroll something and unravel something or launch something in the company, or they're a big part of some new project, and you're just rolling with the punches. And I get that. Some of us, we just roll with the punches sometimes. But other people, we're not rolling with the punches. We know what's going on. We understand that there's a trajectory here. There's something new that's meant to come through. But with all of those other planets, it tells me that the only way we can get the new to fully stick, and I don't think it's fully going to stick until 2026, but for that new to fully stick, we need the old to kind of come through and push our buttons to show us where our unfinished business is. And I feel like we're going to have the arrival wave of the old people, the old situations, the old feelings, the old hurt, the old coming through to test us. Whether that's a person texting you, hey, you up? Whether that's your siblings coming back around, whether that's something that's been going on with an elder. Saturn always can represent that elder situation. And again, we can have some things that start to bubble up to the surface in regards to health, wellness, and careness and well-being. As we have planets go through water signs, what I've usually noticed is detriments or not, sometimes the water signs can manifest in the body like bloat, like your body bloats up a little bit more. No matter how much you cut down your sugar or your salts, like your body's just holding more water. But that also means areas of your bodies can become sluggish because there's too much there. And if we're starting to have certain sluggish feelings while we're trying to push something forward, your body's telling you something. Because some people, whatever starts to go through the rest of the year, October, November, December, the unfinished business is going to have to do with health, whether it's your health or somebody else's health. And we're going to be trying to push something forward in October. And I'm telling you, only so much of the new is going to be capable. And that's why I've been so clear about for a while. We're not going to take the taco truck, using the same analogy I've used every time, to a brick and mortar this year. We're trying to build the following around the taco truck. So that way it doesn't matter if you're in downtown, uptown, a fair, or whatever, you have a following. You have a continuous base of people that look for you, talk about you, and talk about your service. And if we stay focused on that lateral growth as a part of our new in October, doing some troubleshooting and planning in that regard, then we're going to coast through the rest of this year very easily. The big waves of change and messiness in November won't be as messy for some of us. If you're just working on the logistics and the plans of something that you plan on launching in the new year, That too speaks to lateral movement because we're not launching, we're not debuting, we're not pushing something forward until 2026, because that's when more of the new is going to suffice and push forward and move. A lot of October feels like, if we do it well, it's a planning stage month. It's a data stage month. It can put a lot of things forward that not everybody's aware of quite yet. Some of the people that will be aware, you're going to realize that they're going to be able to continue with you or not. Some people will not make it through. They will not make it through the rest of the year. You will not be able to continue that partnership, continue that relationship through the rest of the year. And you'll start to see the writing on the wall this month before some of the hiccup frustrations really hit in November. And I'll be clear, that last little bit of October with that Mercurial trine to Neptune, trine to Saturn, followed by Mars, that's going to have a lot of mental energy that comes. For some people, it's going to sound like overpromise and underdeliver. And if I can give any kind of note going into October, is we do not need to overpromise and underdeliver. You need to be very realistic with something. Some people are going to regret overpromising and underdelivering because real things are going to pop up and you're like, oh shit, I can't do that. So I want you to be very cautious again on what you agree to at the very end of the month, because there's going to be some part of it you can't stick to. You are going to be the wishy-washy person in someone's life. Or if somebody promises something to you, they're going to be the wishy-washy person promising something that they can't deliver on. And it will feel like some final rounds of tests and lessons in this area of how you see certain people moving forward. There will be some arrivals and those arrivals are not going to stick. And if you know that and you are aware of that, then you can be more cautious on some of the decisions before you fully settle into them. That seems like the best way to word that. I always go into a month preparing you guys for the worst, but hoping for the best. And I can't express this enough. I'm super excited for October. And if some of you guys have been sitting here feeling like everything has been stagnant and nothing is going anywhere, that is because that's where the energy was. Some of you, though, you had transitions, but you haven't been able to move into a lot of them yet, or you haven't seen the result in a lot of them yet. October is going to show you some initial rounds of results, but October is also going to show you where you need to tighten your belt a little bit, where you need to work on some things a little bit, and you don't even realize you need to work on them until someone comes and pushes the buttons and says, hey, this one does not work. What happened over here? What's going on? Well, I tried to do it. It didn't work right. Oh, crap. I didn't even know that was an issue. And it's going to give you the ability to correct something before you push into the larger scale. Come 2026. Use the energy wisely. Use it wisely. That's the best thing I can tell you. Okay. I love and appreciate every single one of you. Hit me up with questions. Hit me up with concerns. About 500 of you have sessions in the next few weeks. So many of you. I'm so glad you listened. I'm grateful that you listened. I'm grateful for all of the love and support. But a lot of you really did hit me up. Like you looked. My October is, I don't know, at least 75% full. So and November and December, I've already got bookings too. So I appreciate everyone and thank you for the support. I love and appreciate you. I will talk to everybody very soon. Subscribe.